So the most frequent question that I get asked are, what are the best thrift stores? What are they? Where are they? But better yet, why are they? So I'm going to be covering decades of clothes that you would find at certain thrift stores, the quality of them, the prices, of course, even down to why people don't like specific thrift stores, because a lot of people don't like the Salvation Army and people have problems with the Goodwill too. The thrift stores that I'm going to be covering is the Goodwill, Salvation Army, the CHKD, and the DAV, because I feel like those are the most well known. The Salvation Army, you are more likely to find items from the 70s to the early thousands, and I feel like that is the best place to find the best range of selection of vintage items, because they accept anything. Like, even if it's damaged, they still accept it. With that being said, you will find items that are smelly or have a hole on it or stain, but for the most part, I feel like those items are easily fixable compared to the Goodwill. If they find something wrong with an item, they'll just get rid of it. But with that being said, the Goodwill has the cleanest selection of clothes. You can still find like a decent amount of clothing all the way from the 80s to the thousands. I rarely ever find anything from the 70s. I probably have like maybe 1 or 2 times in the past like 4 years. I feel like the 90s is a hot spot for the Goodwill, and for the Salvation Army, I feel like that is the best place to get thousands clothing. The DAV, I feel like you're best to find 90s to thousands items. I rarely find 80s or 70s, definitely like never the 70s, but the options are really clean. Although I will say you don't really find too many vintage items there, and I think it's because they also organize everything by measurements, so it takes way less effort for people to find what they want at the DAV compared to like the Goodwill. I am more willing to put more effort into finding clothes at a different thrift store because I know that it's in there and it's harder for other people to get to. Like, the harder you put effort into finding clothes at other thrift stores, the more that you will find. But at the DAV, I can put the same amount of effort into it but still not find what I want because it's so much easier for other people to find what they want. You know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of hard to explain, but that's how I feel it is. That's why I rarely ever find anything at the DAV in terms of clothes. I do, but I don't. But I still look. The CHKD, I feel like you can find a range of 80s to thousands items, but I rarely find anything that I personally like in the CHKD. I pretty much never go to the CHKD, but I will say they don't have dressing rooms, which is like a big no-no for me because I need to know how things are gonna fit me, which is the main reason why I don't go to the CHKD. The best place to find jewelry is the DAV 100,000%. The second place to find jewelry would be the Salvation Army. In terms of shoes, the best places would be the Goodwill and the DAV. And in terms of like hats and scarves and gloves, I would definitely recommend the DAV. Like, in terms of accessories, the DAV kills all categories. In second place would be the Goodwill because they have good shoes, they have good bags. The Salvation Army is really just good with hats and jewelry. Their shoe selection is actually pretty good. I feel like it just depends on the one that you go to specifically because some locations are better than others. Now we're covering prices. The Salvation Army has the best prices. You can get a shirt for 25 cents there. And the Salvation Army also does Wednesdays half off. It might be a different day of the week for you, but that's how it is for me, and that is an insane deal. For the Goodwill, they have a color of the week, which would make that item half off. Some Goodwills actually do a color for $1. The Goodwill, I would say though, is the most expensive one. It's also because it's the most consistent and it's the biggest thrift store that I feel like everybody knows of. The DAV varies because I could definitely find something that's way overpriced, or I could find something that is like $1. You really never know with that place, but for the most part, like, I think it's decent prices. They do have like manager specials randomly. They'll randomly have like a 20% off for a blue item. Like, you never know what sale they're having, and they definitely don't always have a sale going on. The CHKD has decent prices. I've definitely found things that were just like a little bit too much. And as far as I know, the CHKD doesn't have any kind of discounts or sales, but if they do, please let us know. Also, I want to throw in the Goodwill outlet. The Goodwill outlet is the absolute cheapest option because you get everything by the pound. I have gotten a full bag for like not even $8, but I will say it's so much harder to find clothes in there. I rarely ever find anything that's vintage, and it would take so much time that it's really not worth it, at least for me. Now I'm going to cover bric-a-brac items briefly. By bric-a-brac, I mean like miscellaneous, toys, movies, furniture. The Salvation Army is notorious for having the best furniture selection. They can be kind of pricey, but outside of that, they don't really have great bric-a-brac items. But I will say, actually, one time I got the entire Freddy Krueger collection, like collector's edition, from the Salvation Army. So you never know, like it's worth checking. The DAV has some of the best selections of bric-a-brac in terms of toys and just like home decorations and, you know, frames, kitchen supplies, all that random stuff. When I mean toys, I mean vintage toys, because as a lot of you guys know, me and Dylan collect a lot of figures. I find cool folders there. I find cool cups there. I found my Roger Rabbit frame there, which is like golden. That is probably one of my best finds there ever. But I feel like the Goodwill definitely has the best selection, like overall, of bric-a-brac. They even have furniture, which is not like a whole lot, but it's usually like really good prices. What are you most likely to find at these places in abundance? At the Salvation Army, it's clothes and furniture. At the Goodwill, it is clothes and bric-a-brac items. At the DAV, it is bric-a-brac items. And at the CHKD is clothes. They actually do have a really good selection of furniture at the CHKD, and for a really good price, I feel like, depending on which ones you go to. But outside of that, I feel like the CHKD's strong suit is Halloween costumes. The DAV comes in second for Halloween costumes, but if you're trying to find some, CHKD is your #1 spot. So what do these thrift stores support? The CHKD is definitely for the CHKD hospitals. The DAV is for disabled American veterans and their families. The Salvation Army goes to the adult rehabilitation centers for people with problems with drugs and alcohol. And then the Goodwill goes towards people who have barriers to getting jobs. They help them fulfill those needs. So two thrift stores that people really don't like are the Salvation Army and the Goodwill, and here are the reasons why. The Salvation Army has problems with the LGBTQ community. They have, actually I'm actually going to read some of the latest things that they've done. Church spokesman David explained that the group did not want to extend medical benefits to same-sex partners of its employees. And in 2012, the Salvation Army fired caseworker Danielle Morantes immediately after discovering she was bisexual. Salvation Army spokesperson Major George Hood reaffirmed the church's anti-gay beliefs, saying that a relationship between same-sex individuals is a personal choice that people have the right to make, but from a church viewpoint, we see that going against the will of God. There are more instances where the Salvation Army has proven themselves to be like homophobes, which is pretty fucked up. The Goodwill, on the other hand, has been caught for doing something just as shitty. The Goodwill is basically allowed to pay people with disabilities sub-minimum wages. Meanwhile, while they're paying people with disabilities under the minimum wage, these CEOs are getting paid like $500,000 a year. Like, that does not sound okay. You know, when there's too many hands cooking in the kitchen, there's gonna be some kind of corruption going on. And it's like, so what do? Do you just not shop at the thrift stores? Proceeds of the money are going to help someone else. So it's like, you can't just throw them out completely. The Goodwill's doing something fucked up. Salvation's doing something fucked up. I wouldn't be surprised if the DAV was doing something fucked up. And if you compare that to fast fashion like brands like Forever 21, a lot of them are also doing some pretty low down stuff, man. What do you guys think about all this? Tell me. I'll see you guys in my next episode, and I'll see you later. Bye!